Hello, everyone. Once again, we are live. My name's Brigantia Blackbird of the Blackbird Grimoire. Thank you ever so much for joining me on this live stream. Or if you're listening to the replay, thank you for joining me now. Today, we're going to be talking about building your personal daily forecast. Now, on the day of this posting, it's after some pretty major world events taking place. And you might be asking, Brigantia, why are we talking about this? There's huge stuff going on in the world. Why is it your answer to come at us with this? Well, the reality is that regardless of how any of us feel about some of those big events that are going on, and the possible consequences and fallout from all of it, the truth is that a lot of that stuff at this stage is really beyond our control. And when things are out of our control, especially when it's big stuff, especially when it has the potential to have major impact on people's lives, it can really do a number on our spirit. It can do a huge number on our mind. It can send our hearts right off the rails. So whenever I feel that things are just really spinning out of control, one technique that has really helped me personally is to take charge of things that actually are within my control. And the first thing that's within my control is, of course, simple things, mundane things around the house, make the bed, sweep the floor, empty the cat litter box, things like that always have a way of making sure that person has, at least you have that. But another big thing is taking control of my spirituality and tailoring it to where it is really fulfilling the needs that I have in that moment. And so that's what we're going to talk about doing today. And while it may not fix the big, gigantic problems we're faced with, at the very least, we're not going to have as many smaller problems closer to home. So let's get into it. And I see I've got a viewer right now. Be sure to say hi to me in the comments. We can absolutely have a chit chat about this stuff. So, another reason why I wanted to do this and why I was intending to do this a bit later on, but just with everything going on, I thought perhaps we'd better cover it now. About when the Daily Forecast series goes on hiatus in September 2025, the people who have enjoyed the contents of the series so far, and those who have found it useful and who leave such sweet comments for it every day, they might want to take on the challenge of creating their own daily forecast. Maybe they're attracted to the structure of it, but they can tailor it to their needs and their desires. And so I thought, well, let's talk a little bit about the thought process of how I created this to begin with, so that people can really decide what they want to have for theirs, what to include, what to exclude, what are things that maybe might be a little bit more specific and meaningful to them. And this is just really a gigantic brainstorming session. So I hope it proves useful. So let's talk about starting points to begin with. And as I mentioned in my prior live stream, I'm not leaving you guys high and dry. I will still be posting monthly cheat sheets for monthly correspondences, astrological info, major events that'll be posted on the community tab on my YouTube channel, as well as on my X account. But another thing to think about when you're starting about really tailor creating your own daily forecast is thinking the three words of seasonal, local, and personal. And the main thing is really, again, to just seize the reins, take charge of what matters most to you in your practice. That is a huge, big thing. So for suggestions, and just these are just kind of three starting points, but I really do believe they have considerable value to us. First and foremost, is the day's astrology. I've always been a proponent of treating astrological energies the same way that we do the weather. And when we're checking in the astrological placements, it's really no different than checking the physical weather report, seeing do we need to carry an umbrella or do we need sunglasses today? What is going on? It allows us to be a lot more aware of the energies that are floating around in the atmosphere. And that, of course, allows us to tailor our approach. Maybe there are going to be days when we postpone certain tasks or we realize that we really need to approach these tasks from an entirely different angle if we want to set ourselves up for success because uh, sometimes it's just not going to be the day for that particular approach. And forewarned is forearmed. I'm a huge big believer in that. So I would definitely suggest keeping track of the astrological placements. And then, of course, divination. Now, I usually bring you guys a tarot card of the day, but you could also use oracle, runes, ogam, any kind of tool that you're very familiar with. And that'll just provide you with a sense of any kind of energies that are drifting your direction that you may need to give special attention to on a given day. Now, in this regard, doing your own is going to be probably a lot more useful than what I do in the daily forecast videos. Because when I do the daily forecast, it's essentially, just universe, what does everyone need to know on this particular day and this particular month? It's very broad. It's picking up on kind of major threads that don't necessarily impact each individual to the same degree or in the same way. But when you're pulling cards for yourself, that's when it's going to be a lot more specific. So that's another thing that I do strongly recommend if you are going to create your own daily forecast. And then pagan quotations. I've been bringing you quotations from pagan philosophers. You can also look to pagan literature. And this includes modern day pagan authors who actually know their stuff, who aren't just respected because people know their name, but are actually respectable in their stances. And they can actually produce some pretty good argumentation in favor of their viewpoints and their recommendations. Looking into these things, it's a way of having just a teeny tiny little chunk of pagan wisdom, just something to kind of turn over in the back of your mind throughout the rest of the day. And it gives you something to think about other than all of the things that are outside your control. And sometimes by focusing upon these words of wisdom that we have from our own spiritual community, it has a way of insulating us. It has a way of providing us with perspective. So that is something that I do recommend that you at least give it a try. Then let's talk about seasonal delights because flowing with the seasons is a big, huge part of paganism, no matter the era or the location in which it's being practiced. And for you, this is a chance to really hyper focus upon what that seasonal ebb and flow looks like where you live, not just in your country, not just in your region, not just in your state, but how is this showing up in your town? How is this showing up on your block? How is this showing up in your own backyard? Becoming a lot more familiar with that. It's a way for you to become a lot more rooted with where you are. And also it helps you have a little bit more conscious awareness about what the realm of norms actually is and when things are truly exceptional. One thing you might do is research weather patterns going as far back as there are records. And then, of course, you can always, if you want to, do some deeper research because a lot of research is being done on ice cores that help people gauge what the temperature and climate was like way, 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 way back. And when you look at that information, you see that we are living through a relatively stabilized period of time when it comes to climate, and that millions of years ago there was a lot more wide difference and very dramatic, extreme differences that happened, and sometimes it flipped on a dime. And so, looking on that, I think that can also inoculate you from becoming a little bit more excessively alarmed about what's going on in the climate today. Another thing to look into is keeping track of what the local flora and fauna are when they're making their appearances, when they fade from view, when they're basically at their peak and doing all of their things. That's something that could be invaluable information for you. And of course, you can concentrate on what the natural world is doing where you live during pagan holy days, and you can integrate that into your personal celebrations. You can celebrate what's really unique and special about your environment, keeping your eyes closer to home. And you can challenge yourself to improve your own connection to the land. You can look for fingerprints of divine presences and land spirits. Anything that's really standing out, that's something you can look into and study a lot more deeply. And this can be part of your own special personal spiritual challenge. Then the next word is localize. And the reason why really suggest people focus on localizing is because it can break down any psychological barriers that might prevent you from recognizing the underlying pagan spirit in your environment. It's always there. It's just a question of whether or not you can perceive it. And when you're perceiving it, you begin to see that you don't have to look thousands of years ago, or you don't have to look over to another continent across an ocean in order to have a sense of contact with the gods or contact with any kind of nature spirits. They're right here where you are. And now there may not be a huge abundance of magical lore regarding the flora, the fauna, and minerals in your areas, but this could be an opportunity for you. You can seize the chance to make it your personal project to study and to detect their spiritual nature. And if you practice the craft, learning how to work with those energies, getting more familiar with them, figuring out what they're good at doing, what they're not so good at doing, and everything in between. It can be a very rewarding field of study, and future generations of pagans will absolutely thank you for this study, particularly if you were to one day publish it in a book. And then you might consider the meaning of local events and traditions. Chances are that if you look at it hard enough, you will find some parallel in what goes on today from an earlier pagan world. And that can just be interesting to contemplate about how there are some things that just continuously echo through time, no matter what the dominant religion is or anything else. There's just some things that are just built into the cake of how these things go. And then, of course, don't be afraid to paganize things. We've talked a little bit about this in daily forecast videos before. You can choose different deities to honor during local events that you feel are actually who have their sphere of influence relates to it in some way. You can claim spaces in the natural world as shrines. You can build a shrine in your own backyard if you have the space for it. You are not bound by pre-existing ancient sites and saying, "Oh no, those are the only places that can be special to us, or those are the only places where we can worship." Nonsense, nonsense, nonsense. You can absolutely claim these things for your own. And then, of course, personalize. The great thing about you when you do your own daily forecast is it doesn't have to serve anyone's spiritual needs but yours. And that's a huge change from the daily forecast videos because when I'm constructing them, what I'm trying to do is to have at least a little bit of something that might appeal to everyone. People will get into different things, certain segments have gone off really well, others have been completely falling flat. And it's because essentially it's a lot of guesswork on my part. What is relevant to people? What isn't? What's resonating, what isn't. But when you're doing it for yourself, you're not having to take any of that into consideration because you already know what's resonating. You already know what it is that you need. Whether you're looking to improve your discernment and correlating abstract spiritual concepts with your daily life, or improving your meditations, or just testing out new spiritual routines, you can prioritize what you need and you can feel absolutely free to experiment. And I strongly encourage you to do so because this is all about finding out what works for us individually, particularly when we're talking about our daily spiritual routines, how we run our households, things of that nature. It isn't about how it's connecting in and plugging in with the broader pagan community. It's about what's working for you as an individual. And if you're feeling down, you might try things like focusing on practices that involve journaling and meditations, very low energy things that allow you to replenish your internal energies. But if you're feeling the need to be proactive, you can try more simple everyday magics to enhance your practice. If you're feeling bored, that's the time to explore something new. If you're feeling unmoored, you can do a lot of grounding work and you can keep to your tried and true practices. You can go back to your comfort zone until such time as you are feeling a bit more steady on your feet. You will know when it's time to venture out and explore again. And of course, when you are taking charge of your own daily forecast, this is something you can just build into what you're doing. And then a few helpful hints to consider. For your personalized daily forecast, please, 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 please do not feel any pressure at all to include all the components that I have in the videos. As I mentioned earlier, the videos are meant to have generalized appeals. There will be different aspects that have relevance to different people. What matters is you keeping your eye on what helps you, what's relevant for your daily walk of spirituality. That's the thing to emphasize. And of course, when in doubt, simplify. And when I say simplify, I don't mean just the amount or the variation of what you do, but really nail down the main ideas that are underneath it all. What is the thing that is supporting all of this other stuff that's built on top of it? Simplify down to that base idea and see if you don't start feeling a bit more steady on your feet. Also, remember that paganism and witchcraft, these things are organic in nature. Allow yourself to go with the flow, listen to your instincts. You never know when your instincts might actually be the whispers of your ancestors speaking to you through your very blood. So it is something that isn't worth paying attention to. And if you focus on the main points of things, then all of the details will follow. Don't feel like you have to figure out all the details first. Generally, you don't. Get the broad strokes, walk your walk, and a lot of other things will naturally connect as you go on. So this was the stage at which I was going to invite, questions, suggestions, thoughts, conversations, brainstorming together as a group. But this was impromptu. It's a Sunday afternoon. A lot of you are probably busy by this stage of, getting ready for the week. But not to worry. We can always brainstorm in the comments. If you feel the need to contact me, you can do that on X at Blackbird Pagan, or you can send me an email at brigantiablackbird at protonmail.com. And we can talk there if you're feeling the need to just kind of thresh things out. But I wanted to get this out there because, again, there's a lot going on in the world. And I feel like sometimes just having a nice, steady spiritual anchor, it can really go a long way towards a person feeling like, well, the world's going to do what the world's going to do, but I'm going to be able to face it. And I think having that sense of internal security is really going to be key for us. So I see a person just joined us. So, ah, Prairie Queen. Hello, hello, hello. You caught me at the very end of my presentation. But what would you like to discuss? Because I've talked about how we can really tailor our spiritual approach, about ideas about how people can create their own daily forecast once the series goes on hiatus in September. Let's see. You say, well, great topic. Glad you enjoy it. I really do think that people can. I think this can be the anchor that we can use to just kind of ward off some of the anxiety that's going to come with, world events going a bit crazier than what is normal and to crazier directions that I imagine a lot of us, would have preferred not to have seen. But yeah, I am all yours. I see a second person has joined us. Um, we can talk about this. We can talk about ideas to create your own daily forecast. We can talk about managing anxiety with spirituality or anything else that's on your mind. I've just been chatting away for about 16 minutes, so I'm absolutely all yours if you guys want to talk for a bit longer, because that's another reason why I went ahead and started the live stream today, just because I know a lot of people have got stuff on their minds, and sometimes it just helps to get it out in the open, in the air, and I think it can be helpful for us to say, well, stuff's going on, but one way or another, we're going to be okay. And I think there's not enough voices out there saying we're going to be okay. Even if the worst possible cataclysmic possibilities came to pass, we are still going to be okay in some form or fashion. And I think that can be rather bracing. and, and I wish more public voices, and I wish voices that have much larger followings than I do really prioritize that kind of talk, because there's no shortage of the doom and gloom. And it's not just that it's gotten boring, in my opinion. It's looking increasingly toxic to me. It's looking like people would rather analyze a problem than actually do anything proactively about solving it, or at least making it bearable. Prairie Queen says, I was just on a stream touching briefly about the world around us. But yeah, there's a lot to say. There's a lot to say about that. Oh my goodness gracious. And when I think about it, our ancestors, they went through a lot. They had far fewer safety nets than we do today. Of course, they didn't have the worries that come with our technological capabilities, but they had to face down some pretty immediate threats to their well-being. Just survival was very, very challenging to them. And I think about their strength a lot. Not to shame us, because why should we be ashamed for being products of the age in which we were raised? I mean, our ancestors in similar situations probably would be much the same as we are. Human nature doesn't really change that much. But I think there's great comfort to take in their example of fortitude and just their willingness to survive. Just know, anything that's going on, over, around, through, whatever I have to do, I'm going to get through it. There's things that need to be tended to. The next generation of children has to be born. We've got to lay the crops for the next season to come. There's always going to be something that's going to remain exactly the same. And that's another reason why I've really been emphasizing having a spiritual routine. In the daily forecast videos, the practices, that's why it's been pretty much the same every single day, because it's about introducing the idea of there are just certain things that we become accustomed to doing as part of our daily routine, and how that can actually be a comfort. It can be a touchstone during the course of the day in which we're just reconnecting. We are getting away from the insanity of the world, at least for a little while, and just saying, okay, that's not what life is actually about. That's a problem of this moment, but it is not the totality of reality. And I think that can be helpful. And all next month in July, I'm going to be touching on a lot of cultural touchstones that we can look on, native plants, our native animals, native minerals, things of that kind. Things that are around us in our natural world that we can always reach out and touch. I feel like we need to look a lot closer to home for a lot of comfort. See, Prairie Queen says we definitely need to focus on ourselves day to day. Yeah, well, I mean, it's the day to day that really leads up to where we end up on the bigger arc of things. Daily habits, they matter a lot. And this is something I've appreciated more and more as I've gotten older, is just, small, consistent, everyday efforts about how that adds up and how it just accomplishes so much more than occasional dramatic gestures. And I think that's also true in our magical practice as well. If we do little small things, to keep the house energies protected, we do little small things to make sure that we're getting, stagnant energy or unfriendly energy out of our house, and we just make that part of the day to day, things don't have a chance to build up into being a big, huge deal. And of course, by exercising our magical muscles on a regular basis, this means that if and when we need to do any kind of bigger work, well, we've actually built ourselves up a little bit to cope with that. And we have a better idea of what kind of self care we need and the aftermath of that sort of thing. Let's see. So again, in July, I'm going to be kind of focusing on the United States broadly, just so that we can get a little bit more appreciation of the kinds of energies and the atmosphere that they create around us. And then in the month of August, before the series goes on hiatus, I'm going to be really hyper focusing on things in Missouri, and that's going to be the touchstone to ask to people, what's the equivalent in your state or your local community where you live, if you're needing to get things a bit narrower than that. Because if you come from a state like Texas or California or goodness, Alaska, those are huge states, and the idea of having the focus on that state, that still might be a little bit overwhelming. So for people in that situation, maybe looking at things in your county will be a little bit more manageable. But whatever it is that people need to do, I want to encourage everyone to again look a lot at things a lot closer to home, and also kind of place yourselves in a similar mindset that our ancestors would have been in pre-technology. When the area in which they were brought up, when it was really, that was their world. That was what they were familiar with. Everything that they needed to know had immediate relevance to that landscape. And so just kind of put yourself in that headspace of, what if we didn't have this communications technology? What if our world was not as connected as it actually is? What would it be like if you were just having to consider your realm of your local community and the resources that you had available within it? How does that change your mindset? How do you perceive the world a little bit differently? How does that alter your own spiritual priorities? I think this is a good idea to focus on because, for one, I think that makes concerns a lot smaller, and I think we need some smaller concerns we can actually do something about. Because when we are inundated day after day after day through various forms of media about all of these larger than life problems that we do not have the direct power to immediately solve, even if we have very sensible ideas about steps that could take that would actually help a great deal, when we don't have the power ourselves to enact that, I think that can just really put us in a terrible headspace. I think it can make us ill. I think it can make us have a more dour view of humankind than what's really warranted. But if we bring things closer to home, closer to our immediate sphere of influence, that just makes the whole project a lot more manageable. So I'm going to do my very best to encourage that, for hopefully for the saving of sanity, because I struggle with this as well. There are times when I have to completely disappear from social media, just because it's too much. It's just too much. Sometimes you'll see, if you follow me on X, what I've been doing lately is doing a lot of aesthetic posts. They're not really, pagan in nature. I mean, you can make them that way. You can perceive them that way. You can find ways to apply it to pagan spirituality for sure. But really, it's just about little moments of beauty, interrupting the timeline of doom and having something that's pretty for the sake of being pretty to look at. I think we need to have reminders that good things exist in the world too. Prairie Queen says, I remember the world before all this technology. I'm trying to practice some of that by limiting information overload. Very sensible. That's 1,000% exactly the kind of thing that I'm talking about. And I mean, and it's a hard balance because not only do we have to kind of weigh, what's the proper amount of information to know? What is enough to keep me actually informed to where I'm, kind of cutting through all of the various narratives from people who have a vested interest in getting me to believe this or that, what's the actual truth? And being so inundated that you can never unplug. What is the balancing act between that? And it's difficult because there's a lot of things going on, and because of course everyone who has a channel and who's a pundit, they will give you every reason in the world why you should stay tuned to what they have to say. The fact that they make money for it, totally beside the point. But we have to learn when to unplug for sure, because we don't need any more crazy in the world. And a lot of the crazy we do see, I think it really is a direct consequence of people just being on information overload. I think we're seeing a lot of behaviors that are really rooted in people being perpetually overly stimulated. Prairie Queen says it is certainly hard when people start talking about all the world's latest woes. Yeah, yeah, I'm exhausted by it, and I don't mean just mentally exhausted. I'm exhausted in my heart. It's just like I don't have the emotional bandwidth for certain things anymore. It's like I can't. It's not there. It's been used up, and the people who've been keeping the entire world in this never-ending state of panic for decades and decades. Well, I think it's getting close to time to pay the piper on that. I think there just comes a point where people start tuning out or saying, "Oh, well, of course, if the dumb dumbs in power are going to keep doing dumb things, then I'm just going to focus on me and mine closer to home and the relationships that I build." I mean, and it serves the powers that be right too. See, I refused to watch news on TV and got rid of my radio. Yeah, I don't really blame you for that. I really don't. I certainly, I am very choosy about what sources I consult, and I try to look at things from different perspectives, just because there's just so much rampant dishonesty. And of course, whenever people are earning a living, and part of earning that living comes from, coming away with a particular viewpoint and agreeing with them. Well, it pays to be a little bit skeptical. There's no need to be so trusting all the time. It actually makes me kind of glad that my channel is, very much on the small side of things, and I don't earn any money doing this, gang. Not a penny. There's no money coming my way from my YouTube channel or anything I post on X or anything like that. Nada, zilch, not a penny. And I'm kind of glad at that now, because at least whether someone thinks, I'm correct or incorrect or completely off my rocker, at least they know that it's my opinion. At least they know who they're dealing with. And there's something honest and refreshing about that. Prairie Queen says, exactly. I move along and I tell my Canadian politicians, stay over there and you do you, boo boo. Oh, you have my sympathies, cousins. I have caught some clips of Canadian politicians, and I tell you what, if anyone needed to be taken out to the woodshed with an old fashioned granny and a hickory stick, it's them. Oh, I tell you what, it just amazes me the way politicians behave themselves. Because when you look around the world, you look at the government, and then you look at what the people of that nation that government supposedly represents, and you look at the people's wishes, and you look at what the government does, and there just doesn't seem to be very much relationship between the two. And it doesn't seem to be to change very much about what country you're actually looking at. I mean, they're all doing the same thing, and I'm like, you know what, if we could just get an asteroid to take out the politicians, or if we could convince the aliens that the politicians would make excellent tech subjects and just leave the rest of us alone, that might not be a bad solution. Because I think we're all sick of it. I think a lot of people are just can't I just be can't we just can we do normal again? Can we have some approximation of normal? Can I just be me without having to worry about life altering consequences to every decision I make? And I think a lot of the thought police and a lot of the language police, they definitely played their role in pushing people to this point of I don't care. Just leave me be. I don't have energy for whatever thing it is that you're upset about and you think I should care about, that I never heard of before, and I don't really care to hear about now. And also, I think a lot of people are getting sick and tired of some of the extreme antics that they see from people online who are trying to get clout for doing outrageous things. Some of the OnlyFans sex stunts comes to mind. Things of things that are just depraved and vulgar, and in any other era of history, such things, of course, would have taken place, but in the shadows, in the dark, where people were ashamed of themselves for being involved in it, and it wasn't advertised as this, the great, wonderful thing. I just think There's a growing appetite for normal, a growing appetite for just hominess and stability, and having something that's wholesome, and having something that you're not that's not overcomplicated. Something that isn't something that isn't taking up more of your energy. People need an energy replenishment. And I think that is also following through in our spiritual realm. Because when I look on X, I see a couple groups of people. You have kind of these people who they call themselves pagans, but it looks a lot like window dressing and not much else. There doesn't seem to be a whole lot of substance there. And then there are other people who they're using what would appear to be very sophisticated terminology until you look at it and look closely and you say, well, there was a way using plain words that they could have expressed that same idea, but they're wanting to make it sound fluffy. So, look, I think I've got some vanity issues looking over there. You have that where, and again, it's not a very substantive. It's stuff that people seem to have studied and they got really deep into, and now they expect everyone to be impressed, but it's not really yielding a corresponding spiritual benefit. I see a lot of that. And then I see the third group of people who are just trying to be real, who are saying, these problems that we have, maybe we don't invest any more poison into that. Maybe we start taking baby steps out of it. And maybe we, kind of distance ourselves from people who are committed to that poison. I actually ended up blocking one of our pagan brothers on X today because he was forever, posting about things that I found exceptionally vulgar for the point of it. And and I got I got into his threats and I said, "My dude, this is not a flex. This is not a good thing. This is just nasty. It is just nasty." And he and I got into it a little bit. He accused me of acting like a Christian, and here's the thing, even in the most open of pagan societies, the reality is that women who behaved like ladies and women who did not were treated very differently, and the ones who did not behave like ladies were not treated very well at all. So there is a vested interest in raising the tone, and also of not really associating with men who have a taste for the vulgar, who have a taste for the low, because ultimately they're not going to be able to tell the difference between a woman of low character and a woman of high character, and they'll treat them the same, and it's not good treatment. So I think there's an argument to be made for being a lot more discerning with the company we keep. Prairie Queen says, I'd rather spend my energy on grounding, shadow work, and simpler, homey cottagecore type living. You and me both. And the older I get, the more I'm getting into that sort of thing. Especially with hoping to get into the farmhouse this year, and looking forward to gardening and starting orchards and all these other little things. And while I enjoy beauty and I like things to be aesthetically pleasing, and I would rather us invest our money in something that's going to last for a long while as opposed to something that doesn't. There's also a kind of simplicity. I'm not looking to radically change up the decor every year or do all of these other things. I want us to, whatever, kitschy coo things that we have around the house, I just want them to have personal meaning to us. It isn't about impressing anyone. And I think that's something key as well about just wanting to live lives where we're not, and we're impressing other people. It doesn't even play into it, that you like what you like. And, whether that's, quite simplistic or something that's quite sophisticated, either way, it's just genuine. We need something that's genuine. And that's what I'm really looking forward to, especially once we get out to the farm, just having that sense of what we have and what we're doing. It's because we actually want it. And just to have that pressure off, because being in this in between place, renting here in town, having to go back and forth to the farmhouse, doing all the work ourselves, and everything being slow going and having to overcome all the obstacles, I will be very thankful to be in a position where we are finally just whole. We're just in one place. All of our time and energy and resources are invested in one spot, and we can just essentially live our lives. I think that's going to be exceptionally freeing, and that in and of itself is going to really reduce a lot of stress. I'm going to have a lot more work to do and a lot more responsibility there, but in a way, I'm not so afraid of that, just because there's something so different to just being out there. We're off to ourselves. we're looking after things, and just there's always reward for it. If we're trimming back a bit of brush and then it's gone and things can actually be mowed, there's instant reward for that. If we have trimmed the trees, then we know the trees are going to last a bit longer, and there's a reward for that. If I've planted flowers, we get to see them bloom year after year. There's just a lot more payoff. Prairie Queen says one good example of unplugging is not hearing all the ads of crap we so-called need to improve our lives. Oh, these ads. I don't know if you've noticed, but there's a podcast that my husband and I listen to of an evening because it's really his only chance to find out what's been going on in the world. So we listen to it. And even though it's live streamed, YouTube has started inserting ads into it. So we've had to switch over into Rumble. And we always do it the first ad we see. That's when we immediately switch over to Rumble, just because YouTube is just not leaving us alone. And there are music channels that I have that I used to really enjoy that, maybe you had an ad at the beginning, maybe you had it in the middle of, a really long track if the video went on for an hour and then one at the end of it, and that was okay. It was still disruptive, but it was okay. But now it's like every 5 to 10 freaking minutes. Like it completely destroys the experience. It destroys the purpose of having clicked on the video to begin with. It makes me glad that I do still have some of my old CDs and whatnot, just because the ads, I mean, just getting away from it all. And also getting away from screens. I do believe that, the amount of screens we're constantly exposed to is probably pretty bad for our eyesights. I think there's been some studies done on that. And also, what about just our attention spans as we're scrolling and as we're, if we're watching short videos and all of these other things, what is that doing to our ability to comprehend longer form conversations or having the patience to actually have a back and forth exchange with another human being? That's one thing that I am glad to have the live streams here on, is just because it at least allows for an opportunity. I mean, people don't always feel particularly chatty, but if people do, we can have a back and forth. We can talk to one another. We can thresh through some ideas, and that's at least a little bit more human than just kind of droning on at a screen and listening to someone drone on you at through a screen. At least I think it makes a little bit of a difference. Well, let's see. Speaking of rambling, I don't want to ramble too long, but is there anything else on your mind that you kind of want to get off your chest, Prairie Queen, or anything else? Because if there is, I'm happy to be here with you. But if you feel kind of talked through and feeling good, then we can call it an afternoon. It's kind of up to you. After I get off here, I'm probably going to be checking on the newborn baby kittens. I've been trying not to bother them too much, but they're so cute. I am convinced that they are all boys. Yeah, it is hard to tell with newborn kittens, but I don't know. I was just kind of looking at the undercarriage today, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure we've got three boys. Oh, but they're so cute. Once we're out at the farm, they're going to have such a blast. I mean, there's going to be mice to chase and goodness knows what else. Not really sure if we're going to have too many squirrels and birds alive at the farm, but if we don't, then at least my fruits and my berries will be able to live. Prairie Queen says, I'm just tickled you think similar. Well, I mean, there's more of us than you think. I really do truly believe that. I think it's just a question of us being able to connect, and that sometimes requires us to wade through a lot of Looney Tunes kind of people. Yeah, we've got baby kittens. They were born on the solstice. They're so sweet. They're two grays. Now, one of the grays has a bit of few splotches of orange. And then we have one completely orange kitty, and he has orange tiger stripes on him already. They're so adorable. They're so sweet. I can't wait to see what their personalities are going to be like. Their mom is very good. She's very protective of them. She's been very much enjoying her delectable treats that I've been giving her. But and she had them in the middle of the night. By the time I got up on the day of the solstice, they were born. They were already there. It was so so cute. But you wouldn't know it. I mean, she has such an easy time with labor, for which I'm very thankful. She's a little bitty thing, but let's see. I see we've got another person watching on the stream. why don't you come out and say hello? Let us know what's on your mind. We've just been chatting about things in general and about how our spirituality can take a lot of the sting of the modern day chaos. So don't be shy with your thoughts there. Mm. Prairie Queen says you're going to love the farm life. I'm glad I live in the country, although years my husband and I talked about moving to Missouri. It was his home state, so I'm a tad jealous. Whereabouts in the States was your husband from? I grew up on the west side of the state, kind of Kansas City wise. Now I'm closer to central Missouri. We're still well above north of the Ozarks, but it's still it's a pretty part of the country. I mean, we've got rolling hills, we've got tons of farmland. It's just lots of those winding rivers. It's really, really, really pretty. I would love to kind of, if I could possibly manage it on the farm, one day in the distant future, of kind of creating a pagan event space. I think that would be absolutely fantastic. We don't, I wouldn't be able to manage a big Stonehenge. However, there's a lot of rock in the soil. So I think I could take some stones and create a stone circle out of it for us to have a good old get together in. And of course, being the farm, we're in the country. As long as we're not under a burn ban, we could absolutely have bonfires. We could find musicians to play for us. We could dance. We could have a potluck dinner. There's so many fun things we could do. Let's see. Prairie Queen says he was from Joplin, Carthage, Webb City areas. Okay, that's quite a bit south of where I usually roam, but those are also really gorgeous parts of the state. Carthage, Missouri, in particular, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, is very well known for its Victorian houses. A lot of them are just works of art. Oh my! I mean, you want to talk about the folk architecture of the state of Missouri? It's got to be Victorian. I mean, that's really the era in which a lot of the state got permanently settled, and I don't know. A little a ways back, I was actually I had this poll on Twitter. I was suggesting, could we consider kind of the Victorian Old West style of attire, kind of like the American folk costume, and that was a rather popular idea. Yes, Victorians are awesome. See, your mother-in-law was born in Webb City. Very, very cool. Yeah, and the lucky thing is that our farmhouse it does have some Victorian stylings. It's simplified, of course, because I mean it's a farmhouse, not one of the big mansions. But I'm looking forward to adding in a bit of just a little bit more gingerbread here and there. I uh, I think it's going to be incredible. It's going to be amazing at Halloween and Christmas. Absolutely. See, Webb City was a lead mining town. Okay, okay, cool, cool. So there are so many mining towns. I mean, in addition to the cave system, we've got mines in Missouri and goodness knows what else. I mean, there's a lot more to the history of the state and different regions of the state and what's where than what other people really realize. And honestly, I'm kind of glad. I mean, we don't want foreigners from other states coming in. When during the height of COVID, when everyone was completely out of their minds, I was anytime I heard about Californians and New Yorkers fleeing because they found the COVID restrictions too tiresome, so they were going to states where it was a bit looser. I didn't. I was kind of glad that a lot of them weren't coming to Missouri because I didn't want them voting here. And I kept telling my husband, we're going to build a big, beautiful wall around the state. We're going to have alligators in the Mississippi. We're going to have we're going to have cannons on the walls, everything else, just because I'm like, let my state be who it is. We don't need anyone transforming it into something that it isn't. And over the past couple of years, I think I'm not alone in getting a lot more protective of my home state, a lot more protective of just kind of its history, its culture, its people. And I honestly think that we all just kind of need to retreat to our corners, our own natural home environments, and and just I think people just not just need to be able to retreat, need to be able to know that they're not being told that they have to completely transform their lives or their way of being and their way of life. Because there's an overabundance of newcomers who think they should be doing everything all differently. I think everyone's sick of that. I see that in pretty much every single country, not just in the Western world, but everywhere. Everyone's just like, we just want to be ourselves. We just want to be left alone. stop bothering us. It's weird. It's like the entire planet is just saying, "Don't freaking bother us." We're not asking you to adopt our customs. We don't want to adopt your customs. Let's just leave each other be, and maybe things will settle down. And I think this really speaks to, it's one thing to be very welcoming to travelers. And I think that's very right because we should welcome travelers because, this is the planet that we share and there's a lot of benefits to travels. But I think it's very different to just kind of indiscriminately allow people to settle in places. That's very different. It's a very different experience to live somewhere as opposed to just visiting there. And I think just people just don't want to feel imposed upon. I don't want to impose on others. I don't want them to impose upon me. I think we need to have a reset of an equilibrium on that. And hopefully the groundwork is being laid for that to happen. We'll just have to see how things turn out. And of course, I think there's a lot to be said for putting energy towards the outcomes that we want to have. And that's another objection that I have to all the doomsayers or people who just analyze problems without suggesting possible solutions. It's because they're actually feeding energy into the exact thing they don't want to happen. And as a witch, I know that you don't do that. That's self-sabotaging. You don't focus on the outcome you don't want. You harness all of your energy and concentrate it on the outcome that you do. That's how you get magic performed. That's how you get outcomes you want. That's how you, at the very least, improve your odds. And it really irritates me when I see pagans do this, and I call them out for it on X all the freaking time. And a lot of them don't listen to me because I'm a witch and they're pagan, and somehow they think that makes them better than me. Which I tell you what, I've got a switch waiting for them if they get within arm's reach with that kind of attitude. Because it's just, will you please listen to the people who understand how you harness and channel energies? We have useful information to contribute to this subject. We're not telling you what you need to do, but we would like you to stop sabotaging your intentions. It's not that difficult. Oh, but that's a whole other rant and rave. It, it really is. Oh gosh. Okay. Okay. Let's see. Anything else, Prairie Queen, or are we good for the afternoon? While you're giving that a think, I hope that the roar of the air conditioner hasn't been coming through the microphone or anything like that. I'm afraid it's going to be our companion for the next several months. All righty. Well, looks like things are. Here we are. Prairie Queen says, exactly, find the solutions, and I ask the universe to show me what I need, what not what I want. Yeah, that's another big thing, distinguishing between the needs and the wants, because sometimes the wants are actually creating bigger problems, amongst other things. Yeah, focusing upon need, that's always um, a better option, I think. And that allows a lot of everything of other things to fall into place because you have to have a strong foundation, and you never have a strong foundation for anything unless the needs of a situation are really attended to. So that's a really important point. But all righty. I think I'm going to get off here. I'm going to let you enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Thanks for hanging out with me, Prairie Queen. And if anyone comes through and they listen to the entire replay after the live stream is done, thank you for listening through to that. And of course, share with me in your comments your thoughts, or you contact me on X if you want to have a conversation about any of this. And yeah, we'll go from there. And I'll see you guys next time I have a little yearning to pop onto a live stream. But enjoy your Sundays. Bye.